Well, Focus Gaming News today, we're pleased to welcome Paul Newson, Principal at Senet Advisory, also an IAGR patron and honorary member. Paul, welcome. Thanks for joining us again. How are you?
Thanks, Joe. Look, great to be here and look forward to speaking with you.
Mm-hmm. How are things there in Australia at the moment?
Look, I think we've turned a corner. The vaccination rollout is sort of kicking off from next week. There's the more vulnerable cohorts, the over 70, which are eligible. So, look, I think there's a level of excitement about that. Very, very encouraging. So I think things are on the up and up.
Okay, excellent. Well, good news. Well, can you start then? Obviously, you're in a new role since the last time we spoke. So perhaps you could begin by telling us a little about your role at Senet and about Senet's new the new Senet Assure certification for gaming operators.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been an exciting transition for me. Like my career was 25 odd years in government in some way, shape, or form, and certainly regulatory and public policy for the main. So transitioning to an advisory role, not without some apprehension, but it's been an exciting journey. I'm only 6 months in, but loving it. And Senet is a tremendous company to work for. And look, I'm thrilled to be back in the industry, public policy lens to the industry. So yeah, look, I'd love the opportunity to talk a little bit about Senet Assure. It's a very exciting offering that we've just soft launched into the market. It's a global first. We think it's a global first because we rigorously examine responsible gambling and anti-money laundering arrangements and practices. Now, to our understanding, that's not being done anywhere. So it's a global first. Look, we certainly have extensive qualifications, but we're not academics. So we are also champions for the industry to be responsible, absolutely, but to also be sustainable and to thrive. So we think that distinguishes Senet at large, but it certainly distinguishes our approach to Senet Assure. In the face of regulatory and public policy headwinds, which are occurring in every jurisdiction, we think Senet Assure, the timing is right. Senet Assure can help advance responsible gambling outcomes, and it can help demonstrate, but also substantively improve resilience to financial crime, and importantly, help safeguard operators from the risks around regulatory enforcement action and those very significant penalties which are occurring globally at the moment. So, look, in our view, Senet Assure, it shows leadership. It demonstrates operators and industry is going above and beyond. It demonstrates that they're taking the initiative and they're gaining some of the momentum around this narrative and some of the opportunity to help shape and rebut this narrative that can be negative at times. And then if that is allowed to continue, then often blunt government intervention follows. So look, Senet Assure, it's backed up and it's underpinned by our extensive regulatory, public policy and legal experience in the gambling sector. And I should also mention anti-money laundering. I was a senior manager with Australia's anti-money laundering regulator. So we certainly bring experience, expertise and sharp minds to this program. What is it? What is Senet Assure? Look, to put it simply, it's a comprehensive audit of an operator's responsible gambling practices and procedures and their anti-money laundering practices and procedures. It is comprehensive and it is rigorous. It involves gathering a extensive understanding of an organisation's governance and strategic direction, and then its responsible gambling and AML practices, but importantly, also their implementation. This involves on-site visits and examination of documents, but on-site visits, speaking with staff, speaking with directors, and also observations. So, look, I think we'd be the first to admit this is not for everyone. This is a quality standard. This is a rigorous standard, and we think the rigour of Senet Assure makes sure it means something. We think it gives it this unassailable integrity, which ultimately will help individual operators, but it's absolutely going to help industry as well. It's going to help industry manage and prevent risks, but also start to reclaim some of this narrative and start to show leadership and going above and beyond statutory requirements.
So what impact has the IGLA inquiry and the Bergin reports had on gaming operators in Australia?
That's definitely front of mind for operators. Clearly, not more front of mind than for the impacted casino operator. Look, I think they've been subject to this enormous forensic scrutiny, which many organisations would wither under. It's difficult for any organisation, no matter their practices, to survive the unrelenting scrutiny of an army of solicitors. So look, I don't say that to diminish any of the shortcomings that were surfaced. It's just an observation that you throw the blowtorch of a Royal Commission or a Special Commission of Inquiry at any industry, and you are going to surface issues, as we've seen across every sector that these inquiries have looked at, every sector bar none. Look, I think we're already seeing some of the ramifications. We've seen the political pressure trigger inquiries, then upgraded to royal commissions in Victoria, and then similarly in Western Australia. I think much of this, and look, this is just my opinion, but I think much of this is really motivated by a want, if not a need, a political need to reclaim ownership of this issue. The New South Wales inquiry, it substantially, if not wholly, looked at conduct in Victoria and in Western Australia. So in Melbourne and Perth casinos, it's through a very limited lens, if at all, at the New South Wales backyard, which I think is a horrible missed opportunity to look at the performance of the New South Wales regulator. And also the conduct and performance of the only casino in New South Wales. Missed opportunity. So look, I think part of that is what's driving the new inquiries upgraded to royal commissions in Victoria and WA, this burning need to reclaim this story, to stop being dictated by a New South Wales inquiry. What will the impact be on the broader industry? I think that story remains to be told. There's no doubt that the potential, you combine the Bergin recommendations and already the public policy headwinds which the industry is confronting in New South Wales, and this could spill over to be very, very significant for industry, perhaps no more so than around the money laundering front and everything that attaches to that around regulatory measures that could possibly harden that environment, but could also, if they're not implemented effectively, really be blunt instruments that cause undue regulatory burden for industry. But absolutely, I think there is ample opportunity for greater alignment between federal and state authorities when it comes to money laundering and money laundering compliance. It shouldn't be, it should be unambiguous, but it seems to be somewhat forgotten by some pundits that money laundering, anti-money laundering is a federal responsibility, and there is a very powerful federal regulator. AUSTRAC is getting the sort of sanctions for non-compliance, which are eye-watering. Its last sanction was impactful. It tells a very powerful story, $1.3 billion. That's the biggest sanction in Australian corporate history. So as to why the New South Wales inquiry sort of traversed into money laundering when it has limited, if any, expertise or capability, puzzles me, absolutely puzzles me, when you have a very powerful and capable regulator that owns that space. But that said, look, I think it's been helpful to surface where there is friction between states, where there is ambiguity in the AML arrangements, and where there needs more attention, and AUSTRAC potentially needs more resources to effectively uplift industry, to effectively give the sort of guidance and support that industry would benefit from, and that would really make the gambling sector in Australia more resilient to the risk of financial crime.
Moving on to your role with IAGR, tell us a little about what we can expect from the IAGR conference in Boston in September.
Look, my first lament is that it didn't happen in 2020. That's obviously when it was scheduled to happen, but it, like probably most other events, were severely impacted and then finally cancelled due to COVID. So whilst that's disappointing, the theme remains eminently relevant. In fact, perhaps even more so. It's all around disrupting the regulator, sparking innovation in regulatory practice. And if there's a criticism of regulators in the space globally, it's that often there isn't that energy, that zeal to have innovative practices. I think sometimes, and hopefully this isn't a sort of tiresome narrative, but sometimes I think we need to channel more of the financial regulators and really channel a bit more of what's happening in fintech and regtech and really embrace that. I would like to see that happen, and that's the theme behind the IAGR conference: sparking regulation. Sparking innovation in regulatory practice. I think, and hopefully there will be more leadership in this space. Understandably, there's a lot of distractions at the moment. There still remains varying impact from the global pandemic in Australia, particularly New South Wales, Victoria, and WA. There's the ongoing impact from these casino inquiries. One's finished, two are about to start. So perhaps there needs a bit more space. But I'm hoping that there will be some robust, some really courageous leadership to drive some reform and drive some innovation in regulatory practice, and hopefully Australia can take a leadership role and reclaim its thought leadership role in this space. But look, perhaps one of the things that I'd like to highlight that I think is absolutely relevant is IAGR is having its inaugural International Regulatory Awards. So I know there are other award ceremonies around the place, and absolutely there are for industry, but the International Association of Gaming Regulators in Boston will be launching its International Regulatory Awards. So that's pretty striking. That's going to be pretty impactful, and hopefully that'll focus attention on regulatory excellence and really spark some courageous thought leadership and some innovation, some embrace of technology. Just quickly, International Regulator of the Year. That's the prestigious one. That's what regulators want to go home with. Regulatory excellence, regulatory innovation, best regulatory campaign, and regulatory rising star. So there's 5 awards overall. International Regulator of the Year, that's the big one. That's the one you want to take home. But similarly, if I was starting out as a regulator, I'd be wanting to get noticed and be nominated for regulatory rising star. So look, I think it's exciting. There's certainly still some challenges to navigate about in-person conferences and international travel. So that is going to be difficult. But hopefully the IAGR board will get there and put on a cracking show, and I hope it's overflowing with attendance, because people are really yearning for in-person meetings and networking again, I think.
Well, I know you've been looking at the possibility of taking a regulating the game course to Singapore in 2022. Why Singapore? What's the idea behind that?
Well, look, we absolutely are. We think there's big gaps in the market for really expert regulatory education, particularly around gambling regulatory expertise. There's big gaps in the market, particularly bringing international experts to bear and providing these really, really dense courses to upskill, to build capability, and hopefully spark that innovation we just talked about. So we're currently focused on delivering the course in Sydney this year, 8 to 13 August at the International Convention Centre in Sydney. It happens to coincide with the Australasian Gaming Expo, so there's 2 reasons to come to Sydney. We've got a little bit of uncertainty around whether or not there'll be able to be international attendees like there were when we first ran it, but in future years we hope to welcome back the international community and attendees. So look, it's an exciting course. We think there's a big gap in the market, and we want to take it abroad, and we think Singapore is a logical next step, and to bring this opportunity, to bring this regulatory education opportunity to Singapore, and make it accessible to a bigger audience. Because absolutely, you can do regulatory education online, you can do it distance and by remote, but nothing can substitute that in-person exchange, that in-person contest of ideas, that networking opportunity where you build relationships, you share knowledge, you share information. So you just can't trump in-person education. And if we can bring international regulatory expertise, international gambling regulatory expertise to Singapore, then we're going to try and do it in 2022. So we're really excited by that.
Sounds like an excellent project. Well, thank you, Paul, as always, for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to add before we finish?
Oh, look, I think it's an exciting time in the industry. There's definitely public policy and regulatory headwinds. You're seeing a lot of change in the UK. We've now got a mooted or even a confirmed change in CEO on the horizon for the Gambling Commission, and I understand a change in the chair. There's a review of the Gambling Act on foot. So there's lots going on in the UK. It's a frenzy of public policy and regulatory activity. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they take. And look, it's almost a bit of an indicator, a bit of a leader for where public policy, the direction might be going elsewhere. So as much as we might cavil with some of the policy direction, it's good to take notice. It's good to pause and see what's happening globally. And look, I'm grateful to be able to speak to Focus Gaming News and talk with you and also hear about what is happening globally through your newsletters.
Well, Paul, thank you for your time as always. It's been a pleasure to have you back with us on Focus Gaming News. And again, we look forward to obviously the AGA conference in Boston later in the year and hearing more from Senet Assure program. So Paul Newson, thank you for joining us. We'll speak again soon.
Thanks, Joe. Great to speak with you. Thanks a lot. Cheers.